Let's go to federal criminal defense trial attorney Ron Chapman. You have also argued before the Supreme Court several times, so we appreciate you coming on the show, sharing your expertise. There have been several procedural questions about former FBI Director James Comey's trial, even before it begins. Do you think that will affect where this goes, or who do you think has a stronger case at this point?
Well, right now, I think it's a pretty open and shut case. I mean, for a defense attorney, that's kind of hard to say in most cases, but usually we don't have the evidence of it on video and before Congress and right after somebody raises their right hand. And certainly we don't usually have a senator who's the one offering the questions. I mean, it seems pretty clear that when Comey made his statements, that those statements were inaccurate given the larger context. I think that there is some claim by James Comey that there's I guess, abuse of the prosecution power here, abuse of the executive power, because Donald Trump seems to have wanted to go after Comey for a long time. But those claims usually fall short unless you see some issue in policy or procedure or the way they moved forward. The reality is that it appears he made a statement that wasn't true, and that's all that's needed for these types of offenses.
And of course, Comey pleading not guilty. His trial set for January. We're watching it closely. We'll see what happens there. Want to move to the ongoing deployment of National Guard troops. Legal experts that we've spoken to have said this could make its way to the Supreme Court. Mentioned that you have argued several cases at the Supreme Court. If President Trump does invoke the Insurrection Act to deploy the military, which he has said he is open to, do you think that kind of escalation, that would bring this case to the Supreme Court?
Well, I think it could. And in fact, last term, or maybe it was the term before, we saw cases in front of the Supreme Court related to the deployment of National Guard to Texas. This is actually often a very hotly litigated issue. And let me just tell the audience where the line is drawn. There's a law that's called posse comitatus, and that's the thing that keeps us from having the military convene on the United States and act as a police force. It kind of prevents coups from happening. And we have a National Guard that sort of sits on the line of that law. Well, whenever you have that sort of friction between the federal government and the people, we often see those cases dealt with in front of the Supreme Court, and especially when we have a state at issue as well. So I could see that happen, very likely. That being said, you've got to have enough votes to get a case before the Supreme Court, and they could always decline to hear it. So we'll see.
Before I let you go, Special Counsel Jack Smith's probe. Lawmakers say phone records were obtained for 9 congressional Republicans. In his criticism, Senator Grassley calling this a violation of personal property and also constitutional rights. Do you agree with that statement?
I think I need to see a little bit more, but there's some smoke, and we're just going to have to see if there's fire. First, these records were hidden. In fact, they were just found out after somebody applied for a job and was basically bragging about the fact that they'd been involved in this operation. That's quite concerning. The second part is we don't see any Democrats on this list. The third, of course, this is something that we wouldn't have known until much later. But the reality is that there's absolutely no evidence that these lawmakers did anything improper. And in order to get the cell phone records under the Stored Communications Act of an individual, regardless of whether they're a congressman or senator, you need to have some probable cause, and you need to have it through a warrant. They didn't do that. What they did is circumvented the grand jury process to get these in a way that I am very, very suspicious of as it stands right now.
All right, a lot of ground covered. We appreciate your time. Federal criminal defense trial attorney Ron Chapman, thank you for joining us tonight on the National News Desk.
Thank you for having me.